Before we get started on the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Muni Buddha. Good afternoon, Venerable monastics, dear Sangha. We have a hopefully short talk today. I'll see about that. I say short because for once the story, we're going through continue with the Dhammapada, the words of the Buddha. If you're unfamiliar with the Dhammapada, Dhammapada is one of the oldest and most important Buddhist texts there are. So we've been covering this Dhammapada for like a year or so, something like that. And we're only in chapter 3 out of 26 chapters. So we are in chapter 4. We're chapter 4 on the flowers, Pavaga, and today I'll be continuing with verses 44 and 45. So I'll read the verses, go into the story of why the verses were given, and then give my commentary. So the verses 54 and 55 go. The scent of flowers cannot go against the wind, nor the scent of sandalwood, nor of tagara, nor of jasmine. Only the reputation of the virtuous ones pervades in every direction. There are the scents of sandalwood, tagara, lotus, and jasmine, but the scent of virtue surpasses all scents. These verses were given as replies to Ananda's question to the Buddha. So one day Ananda, who was the Buddha's main attendant, was meditating, and for some reason something popped in his head. It's like, why do the scents of flowers and sandalwood, flower, its roots, flower, roots, and something else. I can't remember what the third thing is. But there are 3 different scents that are kind of mentioned. It's wood, root, and flower. And so when Ananda was meditating, it's like, why do the scents of wood, flowers, and roots, when the wind is blowing and the scents are in its way, or the wind is flowing through these 3 items, the wood, root, and flowers, why do the scents of these 3 things, why do we smell them in the wind, going with the wind? But why can we smell things that don't go against the wind? So he thought, well, is there anything that can smell against the wind? And so that was the question he asked the Buddha. And so he asked the Buddha, the scent of wood, the scent of flowers, and the scent of roots all spread with the current of wind, but not against it. Is there no scent which would spread with the current of the wind as well as against it? Is there no scent which would pervade every part of the world? So that was the question Ananda asked the Buddha, and the Buddha replied with these 2 verses, which I'll repeat. The scent of flowers cannot go against the wind, nor the scent of sandalwood, nor of tagara, nor of jasmine. Only the reputation of the virtuous ones pervade in every direction. There are the scents of sandalwood, tagara, lotus, and jasmine, but the scent of virtue surpasses all scents. So, my commentary on this. So both of these verses are in reference to virtuous ones, right? Meaning those that have attained enlightenment or degree of enlightenment. Not that enlightened people smell, but it's referencing that even the Buddha was referencing, even though that tagara and sandalwood and jasmine can't be smelled against the wind, but the virtues of an enlightened one can. And again, this is what I'm saying, like virtuous ones don't smell, but the point here is that virtue, merit and virtue in and of itself is what can spread in all directions with or against the wind. And so the Buddha is praising that quality of virtue here and how it naturally spreads and shines like the scent of flower. And then he's encouraging quality or abundance of wholesome actions, and he gives the example, just like a heap of flowers can make a garland, right? A garland of flowers. So too should we multiply our good deeds, our good actions. So and there's a reference to garlands in this chapter quite a bit. And I think I've used them at least 2 or 3 times so far. But think of a garland, right? The flowers that go in garlands are usually jasmine, or we use chrysanthemum. But these are flowers that smell, that you can smell outside, right? When it's windy. So like if you walk out, this very first tree on your right, it's a citrus tree, but citrus trees have these white flowers that to me smell like jasmine. And jasmine is one of my favorite scents ever. But it smells like jasmine. And I was watering the other day and I smelt what I thought was jasmine. I'm like, you have jasmine trees here? Like, where are these flowers coming from? I'm thinking maybe I accidentally passed out when I was like hallucinating or something because it was hot. But I double checked myself. I did not pass out, fortunately. So I'm looking around, I'm like, what is this scent? I haven't smelt this around here in a while. And I took a deep breath and I was like, okay, well, let's use the power of mindfulness here to the power of GPS mindfulness to figure out where the scent is coming from. So I took a few deep breaths and I scanned my surroundings. As I'm scanning my surroundings, and of course, if you notice, there's a lot of trees now blossoming, all the peach trees are blossoming with trees. So these are things that we see as we're just randomly walking, right, in a mundane type of way. But we don't really see them, right? We look at them, but we don't really see them. So there's a difference between you walking and seeing it from the corner of your eye, or you just kind of glance at these trees and you see the flowers. That's not the same as truly looking at these flowers and appreciating these flowers. Because the flowers on peach trees don't last very long. They only bloom for a few weeks before they die off, and then the leaves come. So I believe some of the trees already have some leaves. So that's already indicating that the flowers are about to fall off and dying, right? And so it's a good opportunity now to say, okay, well, these flowers, this would have been a great example yesterday in meditation. These flowers are impermanent, because we were talking about impermanence. These flowers are impermanent, and I know for a fact that the impermanence life cycle of these flowers are now even shorter because the leaves are now there. And so now that the leaves are coming in the tree, the flowers have maybe a week left before they fall, and it will not bloom again until next spring. And so fortunately, there's only a couple of trees that have leaves so far. The rest have full flowers. But anyway, as I'm doing my little GPS mindfulness scan, I'm like, okay, well, what do we have around here that smells, that has scent? Because flowers of peach trees don't have any scent, right? So I'm scanning, I'm like beep, 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 right? Look at the citrus tree, I'm like beep, 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 that's it. And so I'm like, well, that has to be it, right? And it concluded, I was like, that has to be it. And so as I made my way up there when I was watering, and I was watering, I was watering the little plant that's right next to it, then I can really smell that big whiff of these flowers coming in. And I just sat there for a good 5 minutes, just sticking my head in these thorny trees and just allowing the flowers to, scent me up. But anyway, I don't know why I went on that tangent. But the point is, I guess, is the qualities of virtue, the qualities of a virtuous person is equivalent to the scent that permeates the area, right? It doesn't need to be someone coming up and spraying cologne on you for you to smell something good. You don't have to go up to it, right, directly to be able to smell it, right? You can be 100 feet away and still smell the scent of those trees or those flowers. And so kind of likewise, when a virtuous one, or replace virtuous one with an enlightened one. So the same kind of idea happens when an enlightened person is in the areas, in the vicinity, or you come across someone that is enlightened. The same feeling we have of being able to smell something from a distance, we can sense that same energy from someone that is enlightened. And so the Buddha is describing that unlike, however, the sense of flowers, of wood, and root that can only be smelled when it's going with the wind, the presence of an enlightened being can be sensed even going against the wind. And so the example I kind of give to myself is, imagine that you're in a crowd of hundreds, thousands of people, right? You don't know anybody, you don't know who they are, you don't know what their name is, you don't know what they do in life, you don't know anything. But if you are a person that is a practitioner, a deep practitioner, and you have at least a handful of kind of aha moments in your life, and you practice some realizations, enough for you to be able to kind of know what an enlightened moment feels like, if you're in this crowd of hundreds or thousands, you too will be able to sense this enlightened person within this crowd. And so the qualities of virtue and merit, not just in this quote or these verses, but in general in Buddhism, we'll see that to be able to develop and hone and to do good deeds, to have good thoughts, speech, and actions, right? To have good deeds, to accumulate these good deeds can only bring you closer and closer to enlightenment, right? And the more good deeds we do, the heavier your good karma basket is, right? So I was mentioning either yesterday or for sutra study class that that we cannot erase karma. Karma can't be deleted, okay? But what karma can be done is overpowered. So if you have two large vases of water, right, or bowls or whatever it is, right? One's salty water and one's fresh water. And so the more fresh water you put into the salty water, it starts to dilute that salty water. And eventually that water stops not being salty anymore, right? The more fresh water you go into it. That salty water is still there. It didn't disappear. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't transform. But it got diluted enough, so much, that the qualities of that salt water is no longer there, right? You're unable to taste the saltiness anymore. So likewise, our good karma, our good deeds, the good merit that we accumulate works in the same way, right? It doesn't erase your bad karma. You can't just forget about it. We can't think that we can delete it or let it go. It's always going to be there. You can't remove it. It's like a stain on your consciousness. It's not going to go anywhere. And what we can do is do more good deeds to overpower any of that negative or unwholesome karma that we've accumulated. So the Buddha then also emphasizes both the inherent value of a single act of goodness and the cumulative power of repeated virtuous actions. So this is a great example while we are here in a group setting, right? We already know that the more people you have doing good things, the bigger the impact. A great example is, well, right now outside, we're building the stupa, right? It's a memorial tower. And every single piece is solid granite. If you know, granite's one of the hardest, heaviest rocks there are. And so just to move like a base that's the size of this table and maybe 9 inches by what? 9 inches by 4 feet or so, right? Not that big, but this thing is heavy. It requires at least 4 people to lift it, right? So imagine one person trying to lift this slab of granite on their own. It'd be impossible. But the more people that come and help to complete this task of this goodness to build a memorial tower, the easier it becomes and the quicker the process can go, right? And so we can think of the same thing when we're volunteering, right? How much more work is done in a volunteer event when there's more people versus it was just a handful of people, right? Way back in the day, I used to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, where they built houses, right, for people. And I think I went 3 weekends in a row while I was still at my job. So it was like a group thing, right? It was a team building activity. The very first week of the event, almost everyone showed up, right? And so we got there right as the project started. And so all we had was just a slab of foundation, right? And some wires and things sticking out. But in that day, in that, I think, 7-hour period, we're able to put up the frames and the walls of this house. That's a lot of work to do in one day. There was at least 40-something people, right? So there was a lot of people to do it. The second week, maybe half the people showed up. And so we were only able to complete the walls inside, for the rooms and the doors and the frames and all that. And I think it was only maybe, it was a small house. It was only like a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It was a small house, right? And so there wasn't much walls. I think there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 walls in total, right? And door frames. But now that we only have 20 people, it took the whole day just to put up door frames. Versus the weekend before, we had a whole frame and whole outside walls put up. The third week, there was only 4 of us. We practically didn't get anything done, to be honest. Like, I don't even remember what we did. I remember doing something on the roof, but that's all I remember. Like, there was not enough people to do anything. And so we can see the impact of people coming together to do good things and how much of an impact it has, right? How much the results can shift and change by having more people do wholesome actions together, right? Things can be done quicker. Likewise, even in your meditation practice, to me at least, it's much easier to be able to sit for longer periods when we're meditating in a group setting, right? To me, that's not always the case because sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I want to be myself and I want to see another person, but sometimes it's fun to have group activities. So to me, it doesn't matter. But I've noticed, like especially when we do retreats, and we have discussions and Q&As and whatnot, and people have said it's much easier for them to be able to sit for that hour of meditation in the group versus trying to do 30 minutes at home, 20 minutes at home. Because 15, 20 minutes at home seems like a lifetime for some reason. But then you come to the temple and sit down for an hour with everybody else, and you're surrounded by 20, 30 people. All of a sudden, an hour was easy peasy. Why do you think that? Why do you think there's such a difference between the two settings? Actual question. Nobody has the answer? Wow. Try to what? Trying to keep up. Your support. That's a good answer.
It's the power of the group. People come in with their own abilities to focus, their own mindfulness, their own awareness. Let's say there's 20 of us sitting all together. It's like everyone gets empowered
right.
by that. The virtues get multiplied and multiplied.
Mm-hmm. There's a cumulative energy in the room, right? There's a group energy versus just a single energy. But also, to Louise's point, sometimes we sit because we don't want to be the one that doesn't know how to sit in meditation. I don't want to be the one that falls asleep. I don't want to be the one that's always being corrected, because I'll go around my little spanking stick and correct people's posture, right? They don't want to be the one that's the target of my corrections. And so there's a little part of kind of an ego there for some, but generally speaking, the group energy does make a difference, right? Just, I mean, think of group settings. Think of when you're in a situation where you're like with like-minded people, whether it's friends or family, right? You have a little bit more fun, you're a little bit more open, you're a little bit more comfortable, right? Versus if you're in a setting with complete strangers, a little bit distance, maybe you're a little bit shy, you don't really have that social energy. Sometimes that's me, but there's a difference, right? There's a shift that is noticeable. At least I believe so. So anyway, back to virtue. So in these verses, right, the Buddha is trying to teach us kind of three main points of virtue and merit. That virtue is radiant and transformative, right? Just like that fragrant flower. That human life is precious and a rare gift filled with potential for creating great goodness. And that we should live mindfully, speaking and acting with wisdom to fulfill our highest potential. And so there's a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's one of my favorite astrophysicists out there, that stuck with me when, what was I reading? I was reading something a long time ago. I was making my notes. And it was talking about the preciousness of human life and how it's such a gift to be born as human, right? To be able to be in a time and place where we have the resources and the people to learn and teach the Dharma, right? Because I'm going to make a generalized assumption here that most of us are here because something clicked when we studied or practiced or read about Buddhism. Something clicked about the Dharma that made enough sense to us and gave us enough courage to seek out the temple, to come to the temple, right? And so in Buddhism, especially in Buddhist cosmology, right, there are different realms of existence. And the realm of humans, even though we're kind of at the bottom of the 31 realms of existence, we're in the bottom 6, but still the bottom 6, there's 6 lower realms and 3 lower realms and 3 higher realms. And we're part of the 3 higher realms. But we're in the middle, right? Because it's from the bottom up, it's hell, hunger, ghosts, animals, humans, asuras, and devas, right? So we're right in the middle. And even though asuras and devas are at a higher level of existence, they still do not have the capacity like humans do, to be able to distinguish their suffering, to be able to see their suffering, right? Because they're in such a higher realm of existence that they technically have everything that they want, right? These are people who are very fortunate, very wealthy, very well off. They have every need and desire satisfied in life. They don't really think about suffering, because if they're suffering, like, oh, I'm starving for a steak. We were talking about steak yesterday, and they're like, just, they snap their fingers and a servant comes and gives them steak, right? So they don't. So the suffering that they have for this desire is so little, it has zero impact on them, right? So they don't really see the suffering. They don't see the reasoning to have to practice, to be mindful in life, to be aware, to be able to be meditative and try to ascend or transcend your mind. They don't have these desires because they're like, well, I have everything I want. I'm satisfied. I'm happy. Like, why would I want anything more than this, right? So even though they're in a fortunate realm of existence, they're truly less fortunate than we are. But as humans, we are in a kind of Goldilocks zone, because we're able to both see and witness and experience both suffering and complete joy or happiness, right? We're able to see both sides. And so that way, when we're completely suffering, we know that we're suffering, we know that this is suffering, and we know that we want to get out of this suffering. And for those that are well practiced, even when you have the highest moments of joy and happiness, if you're aware enough and you're practiced enough, then you know that even at this moment that you're feeling extreme joy and happiness, that this joy and happiness is fleeting. It's impermanent, right? It's never lasting. So it will disappear. But likewise, the suffering that you experience is also it's also impermanent and will not last. And that will disappear. So knowing that both extremes of suffering and gratification is impermanent and not lasting, we have a clearer view than those that do not. So anyway, the point of I was trying to bring up this quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love people with 3 names. It's like, why? But anyway, that's beside the point. The quote that he says is, most humans that could ever exist never will. And so the fact that you exist at all is against stupefying odds of who gets to be born and who gets not born and who does not get born. And so if we realize this, right, and if you really look deep, right, you can say, okay, I am me, you are you, we're alive, right? And so we are alive, which means we get to die. But to get to die means you have to live, right? And so any moment that you're just kind of squandering life, you're just wasting your life doing stupid things, right? Those moments that you are alive does so much disrespect to all those who will never be born. If you go outside and grab a handful of dirt, these are all the potential beings that could ever live. If you just throw the dirt up in the air and just put out a finger for one little grain of sand to land on your finger, that's the one out of this bazillion little grains of sand that gets to be born. And you're that one grain of sand that got to be born, against all the odds of the other ones not falling on your finger. Isn't that a gift? Don't you think that's worth living? Worth trying to better our lives for? To honor and show respect to those that will never be able to have life. So this allows us to see the preciousness of life and how rare it is to actually be alive. Even this world that we live in is equally that same one little speck of dust out of the bazillions of them. Right? We think that we're so important. We're human beings, we live, we have brains, we can think, we can do, we can create, we can destroy, and we think we're all that. But on the grand scale of things, on a cosmic level, we're nothing. You're not important. You don't make any change. We don't do anything really that's worthy of a cosmic scale of things. So likewise, our Earth, or at least our solar system, our galaxy, is just a one little grain of sand out of the billions that you can pick up. So even our galaxy is a gift of life. And then our Earth is even a bigger gift of life. And you being alive is even a bigger gift of life. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to change your life? How are you going to improve your life? How are you going to make your life worthy of living? And how are you going to honor those that never get to live? By doing stupid things? Partying every weekend? Spending money on things that don't need to be spent on? Associating with those that do not need to be associated with? What are you doing to improve your life and to improve the lives of others? And I think it was our last retreat that we had last year, one of the topics of my Dharma talks was the purpose of life. And there's not a lot of things I hate in life. I don't hate anything. It takes a dramatic shift for me to get angry on anything. But the one thing that does really kind of piss me off is when people come to me and be like, what is the purpose of my life? Like, that question just pisses me off. The purpose of your life is already fulfilled. You've lived. You're the one little grain of sand out of the billions that never got to be born. That's your gift. That's your purpose on a grand scale scheme of things. But more generally speaking, your purpose in life is one thing and one thing only. What is it? Actual question.
You always say it's to be happy.
Yes. The only purpose of life is to be happy. True happiness, yes. Not the happiness you get from eating a good steak, not the happiness you get from building a big house, not the happiness you get from getting married or having kids, not the happiness you get from a new job, not the happiness you get from a new phone, not the happiness that you get from traveling the world. Every single one of those, and anything and everything that is outside of yourself is always impermanent. Which means if something is impermanent, the happiness that it gives you is also impermanent. So that it cannot be true happiness. So if that's the case, then what is true happiness? Come on. I know you know the answer. 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 I know all y'all know the answer too. But you're afraid to say it. Come on, spit it out. Liberation. Liberation from what? I feel like now this is a pop quiz. Sorry?
From suffering.
Exactly, from suffering. And what is suffering?
Non-happiness.
Huh?
Attachment and desire.
Attachment and desire. Yep. So I don't know, was it a meditation class or the Amitabha? One of the two, where we're talking about the 8 sufferings in life. Suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. The suffering of not being apart from loved ones, suffering of not getting what you want, suffering of associating with those you dislike, the suffering of the flourishing of the 5 skandhas, or the 5 aggregates of form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. These are the 8 sufferings. All these 8 sufferings, however, fall under the category of the 3 poisons, which are 3 poisons. Greed, anger, and ignorance. I did turn this into pop quiz class, didn't I? So the eradication of these 3 poisons is your ticket to freedom. The eradication of these 3 poisons is the only goal to succeed in the purpose of your life. That's it. Some people want to save the world. I'm sorry, it's not savable. Especially not now, I don't think. But I always kind of respond to that with, yes, because you know me. If you know me, you know I'm a little sassy, I'm a little sarcastic. So if someone tells me I want to save the world, that is the stupidest answer I've ever heard in my life. The world can't even save the world. So then what can you save? Yourself. Absolutely. And if you've saved yourself, then what else can you do?
Save others.
Save others. Do you think by saving yourself you can save the whole world at the same time? No. So what do we do instead? And work your way out. Start with the little sangha of your community. Become enlightened? Good. We need an enlightened person. Now you can teach. And you can teach these people to be enlightened, and then they can go out and teach other people to be enlightened, right? So it's a wave of liberation. It's a wave of happiness. It's not just one giant asteroid. Well, actually, even if there was an asteroid, there's still waves. So that doesn't work either, unless the asteroid is bigger than the Earth. But at that point, it's not an asteroid anymore, it's a planet. I'm getting too scientific here. I need to stop talking. But anyway, that's the point. That's the purpose of your life. But unfortunately, people get sad about that. Like, that's not the purpose that I want, and your purpose is wrong. Your view of life is wrong. So wrong. Just think of what brings you happiness. Just something stupid, like what makes you happy? Another question. What makes you happy, generally speaking? Cats. I already knew that. To me, it's food. I love food. What makes me happy? Okay. What else?
Peace and quiet.
Okay.
No drama, just
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What do all of these things have in common? They're outside, they're fleeting, they're impermanent, which means then those happiness will not last. The happiness that the cat brings to you, the cat's gonna die. Your family and relatives and friends, they're gonna die. Drama, there's always drama. So, is that true happiness then? No. True happiness is a mind state that is free of all those attachments. So then when a cat does die, you understand that death is impermanent. That death is inevitable. It's a part of life. You understand it, you accept it, you move on to it. You don't dwell on it, you don't attach to it, right? This doesn't mean you can't feel sad for the living being that has passed. But the problem with death is people become attached to the person that has died, and that's what brings you suffering. It's not that they died. It's not that they died that brings you suffering. It's the fact that they're no longer there, and you can say, "I know this person. I can talk to them whenever I want. I can visit them whenever I want." It's the attachment you have to this person that's causing you suffering, not the death itself. And so when we were able to, and we were just talking about meditation on death yesterday, the reason why meditation on death is so important is for that exact reason. So that when death does occur, you don't become stone. You don't become someone that's incapable of taking care of things, to help, right? There's a lot of people in my family, when their significant others died or whatnot, they just lock themselves in the room and can't do anything. They're incapacitated. because they're grieving so hard that they don't even want to eat, they don't want to sleep, they don't want to help, they don't want to put things together or speak to relatives, they don't want to do anything. And what's the point of that? You're wasting time. You're wasting the opportunity to be with others that are also in mourning. But if we meditate on death and we truly, truly understand death and understand the impermanence of life, the inevitability of death, the process of dying, the process of living. There's a song by Lana Del Rey that's titled "Born to Die." Have you ever heard that song? Or if you watched, what movie is it? The one with Leonardo DiCaprio. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it's an old famous movie. But anyway, the song, that's kind of the main theme of the song of that movie. Born to die. But that's truly what we're here for. We're born to die. But before you die, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to improve your life and improve the life of others? That way, when death happens, you're like, okay, I already know this is happening. This is just part of life. It's a natural thing. Why am I obsessing over it? Why am I being so attached to life that when death occurs, it's the end of the world? Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm running way over time. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts? Yes.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you for talking about because I had a realization while I was speaking. Can I share it?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. So it's the understanding how powerful the virtues are in comparison to vices. And the example that came to my mind was me back in the day. I used to work at the bank and I'd be sitting in a cubicle, getting ready for the day, I'd be really peaceful, everything's fine, I prayed, I meditated, I did my spiritual practices, and then in comes someone that is angry or anxious, or fearful, or lustful, or any of those different defects or vices, and suddenly the energy of that room is permeated with that heaviness.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, like, not only I feel like this, but my coworkers start to feel like they walk on eggshells. They feel like they don't want to set this person off, and it feels overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, being so energetically sensitive, I'm afraid to let me move because I don't want the energy to even get heavier. But then suddenly someone else walks through the door that is genuinely, as you say, happy. Not because of external attachments, not because of anything else, but just because they're genuinely at peace. And they're the type of person that does their job every single day, and they're there to serve their coworkers if they have any questions or to welcome anyone. And suddenly it's like an air freshener kind of walks in the room and it's sprayed and it dissipates that heaviness. And suddenly, like over time, the longer that person is there, the longer that person is present, the longer that person is in that vicinity, it dissipates in its entirety. And I feel like a lot of times people allow the vices that they perceive in other people to dominate their thoughts. But I feel like when we as Buddhist practitioners start to shift our own personal life from those vices and create virtues instead, then we can kind of be like that air freshener that walks into the building. That breath of fresh air that you didn't even know that you needed. You can't really put your finger on it, but something is shifting. But you just have to get to the point in practice where you can differentiate, like, is this an external thing? Is it something within me?
Right.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good insight. Love it. Anything else? We have 2 minutes. I mean, we're over like 15, but still. Okay. No other questions, then we will transfer the merit and go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. We'll start with page 1. Sense in the censer now is burning all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfill. As all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattvas. Gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earth, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripen. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awake from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Pitch to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realms and the realms of entities and 3 periods of time. To the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, earth stored great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea like Bodhisattva. Unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Pilgrim, briefly in this world I am grateful and joyful to hear the Lotus Sutra. How hard to be born a human egg, but I might hope to hear once more the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha moon is hidden, the son of Maitreya not yet arisen. In the long night's darkness, in between only the Lotus Sutra sheds its light. The wonderful Dharma of the Lotus Sutra, whoever copies it, reads it, lives it, they say will be called preacher of the fivefold Dharma. With his 6 roots cleansed in the hand, he who chants the Lotus Sutra is guarded by 1, page 6. O Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Sutra of the Lotus of the Wonderful Law, Chapter 1, Introduction. This is what I heard one time. The Buddha was in Rajagriha, staying on Hakutaha. Accompanying him were a multitude of leading monks, numbering 12,000 persons. All were arhats whose outflows had come to an end, who had no more earthly desires, who had attained what was their advantage, and had put an end to the bonds of existence, and whose minds had achieved the state of freedom. At the time the Buddha sat in lotus position and entered samadhi, his body and mind never moved. The heavens rained down mandarava flowers, gray mandarava flowers, manjul shaka flowers, and gray manjul shaka flowers, scattering them over the Buddha and over the great assembly, and everywhere the Buddha quaked and trembled in 6 different ways. At the time, monks, nuns, laymen, lay women, devas, nagas, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimnat, mahoragas, human and non-human beings in the assembly, as well as the petty kings and wheel-turning sage. All those in the great assembly, having gained what they had never had before, were filled with joy and with their palms pressed together, gazed at the Buddha with a single mind. Then the Buddha emitted a ray of light from the tuft of white hair between his eyes. It illuminated all the 18,000 worlds in the eastern direction, down as far as Avicii, hell, and upward to the Akashita heaven. From this world one could see the living beings in the 6 paths of existence. In all of those other lands one could likewise see the Buddhas present at the time in those other lands, and could hear the sutra teachings which those Buddhas were expounding. One could see monks, nuns, laymen, and lay women who had carried out religious practices and attained the way. One could also see the Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas, who through various causes and conditions and various types of faith and understanding, and in various forms and aspects, were carrying out the way of the Bodhisattva. And one could also see the Buddhas who had entered parinirvana, and could also see how after the Buddhas had entered parinirvana, towers adorned with the 7 treasures were erected for the Buddha relics. At the time sages who can give me an answer. At the time, Manjushri said to the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva Maitreya and the other great men, good men, I suppose that the Buddha, the world-honored one, wishes now to expound the great law, to rain down the rain of the great law, blow the horn of the great law, to beat the drum of the great law, to explain the meaning of the great good men. In the past I have seen this auspicious sign among the Buddhas. They emitted a beam of light like this, and after they great law, therefore we should know that now when the present Buddha manifests this light, he will do likewise. He wishes to cause all living beings to hear and understand the law, which is difficult for all the world to believe. Therefore he has manifested this auspicious sign, good men, at a time that was an immeasurable, boundless, inconceivable number of Samkhya kalpas. In the past there was a Buddha named Sun Moon Bright. Thus come one worthy of offerings of right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, well gone understanding the world, unexcelled, worthy trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha world honored, who expounded the correct law. His exposition was good at the beginning, good in the middle, and the meaning was profound and far-reaching. The words were skillful and wondrous. It was pure and without alloy, complete, clean, and spotless, and bore the marks of Brahma practice. Sake of those seeking to become voice hearers, he responded by expounding the law of the Four Noble Truths, so that they could transcend birth, old age, sickness, and death, and attain nirvana. For the sake of those seeking to become Pratyeka Buddhas, he responded by expounding the law of the 12-link chain of causation. For the sake of the Bodhisattvas, he responded by expounding the 6 Paramitas, causing them to gain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and to acquire the wisdom that embraces all species. And there was another Buddha who was also named Sun Moon Bright, and then another Buddha also named Sun Moon Bright. There were 20,000 Buddhas like this, all with the same appellation, all named Sun Moon Bright, and all had the same surname, the surname Pravasha Maitreya. You should understand that for the last all had the same appellation, all were named Sun Moon Bright. They were worthy of all the 10 benefits, and the law they expounded was good at the beginning, and the middle, and at the end. The last Buddha, when he had not yet left family life, had 80 princely sons. The first having intention, the second good intention, the third immeasurable intention, the fourth jeweled intention, the fifth increase intention, the sixth lens of doubt intention, the seventh echoing intention, and the eighth law intention. Dignity and virtue came easily to, and each presided over a 4-continent realm. When these princes heard that their father had left family life and had gained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, all their princely positions, and followed him by leaving family life, conceiving a desire samadhi of the place of immeasurable meanings, his body and mind never moving at this time. Heaven rained down mandara flowers, gray mandara flowers, manjushaka flower, and gray manjushaka flowers, scattering them over the Buddha and the great assembly, and everywhere the Buddha will quaked and trembled in 6 different. The time the monks, nuns, laymen, and lay women, heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimnadas, and mahuragas, the human and non-human beings in the assembly, as well as the petty and will-turning sage kings, all those in this great assembly gained what had before, and filled with joy pressed their palms together and gazed at the Buddha with a single mind. At the time the thus come one emitted a ray of light from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows, one of his characteristic features, lighting up 8 Zen Buddha lands in the eastern direction. There was no place that the light did not penetrate, just as you have seen it light up these Buddha lands. Now Maitreya, you should understand this. At the time the assembly, 20 million bodhisattvas who were happy and eager to hear the law. When these bodhisattvas saw this beam of light that illuminated the Buddha lands everywhere, they gained what they had never had before. They wished to know the causes and conditions that occasioned this light. At the time there was a bodhisattva named Wonderfully Bright who had disciples. At this time the Buddha, sun, moon, bright, arose from his samadhi, and because of the bodhisattva Wonderfully Bright preached the great vehicle sutra called the Lotus of the Wonderful Law, while to instruct the bodhisattvas, one that is guarded and kept in mind by the Buddhas for 60 small kalpas. The Buddha remained in his seat without rise, and the listeners in the assembly at the time also remained seated there for 60 small kalpas. Their bodies and minds never moved, and yet it seemed to them that they had been listening to the Buddha preach for no more than the space of a meal. At this time in the assembly there was not a single person who in body or mind had the least feeling of weariness. When the Buddha, sun, moon, bright had finished preaching the suit over a period of 60 small kalpas, he spoke these words to the Brahmas, devils, shamanas, and Brahmins, as well as to suppose that now the thus come one is about to preach the vehicle sutra called the Lotus of the Wonderful. All ought to instruct the Bodhisattvas, one that is guarded and kept in mind by the Buddha's chapter 2. Expedient means at the time the world honored one calmly rose from his samadhi and addressed Shariputra, saying, the wisdom of the Buddhas is infinitely profound and immeasurable. The door to this is difficult to understand and difficult to enter. No voice hearers or Pratyeka Buddhas is able to comprehend it. What is the reason for this? A Buddha has personally attended 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million, a countless number of Buddhas, and has fully carried out an immeasurable number of religious practices. He has exerted himself bravely and vigorously, and his name is universally known. He has realized all of this profound and never known before, and preaches it in accordance with what is appropriate, yet his intention is difficult to understand. Shariputra, ever since I attained Buddhahood, I have through various causes and teachings and have used countless expedient means to guide living beings and cause them to renounce attachments. Why is this? Because the thus come one is fully possessed by both expedient means and the paramit of wisdom. Shariputra, the wisdom of the thus come one is expansive and profound. He has immeasurable mercy, unlimited eloquence, power, fearlessness, concentration, emancipation, and samadhi, and has deeply entered the boundless and awakened to the law never before attained. Shariputra, the thus come, knows how to make various kinds of distinctions and to expound the teaching skillfully. His words are soft and gentle and delighting. Putra, the Buddhas preach the law in accordance with what is appropriate, but the meaning is difficult to understand. Why is this? Because we employ countless expedient means discussing causes and conditions and using words of simile and parallel to expound the teachings. This law is not something that can be understood through pondering or analysis. Only those who are Buddhas can understand. Why is this? Because the Buddhas, the world honored ones, appear in the world for one great reason alone. Shariputra, what does it mean to say that the Buddhas, the world honored ones, appear in the world for one good alone? The Buddhas, the world honored ones, wish to open the door of Buddha wisdom to all living beings to allow them to attain purity. That is why they appear in the world. They wish to show the Buddha wisdom to living beings, and therefore they in the world they wish to cause living beings to awaken to the Buddha wisdom, and therefore they appear in the world. They wish to induce living beings to enter the path of Buddha wisdom, and therefore they appear in the world. Shariputra, this is the one great reason for which the Buddhas appear in the world. The Buddha said to Shariputra, the Buddhas thus come one simply teach and convert the Bodhisattvas. All the things they do are at all times done for this one purpose. They simply wish to show the Buddha beings and enlighten them to it. Shariputra, the thus come one have only a single Buddha vehicle which they employ in order to preach the law to living beings. They do not have any other vehicle, a second one or a third one. Shariputra, the law preached by all the Buddhas of the 10 directions is the same as the Shariputra. The Buddhas of the past used countless numbers of expedient means, various causes and conditions, and words of simile and parable in order to expound the doctrines for the sake of living beings. These doctrines are all for the sake of the one Buddha vehicle. These living beings, by listening to the doctrines of the Buddhas, are all eventually able to attain wisdom, embracing all species. Shariputra, when the Buddhas of the future make their listening to the doctrines of the Buddhas will all eventually be able to attain wisdom, embracing all species. Shariputra, the Buddhas, the world-honored ones who exist at present in the countless hundreds, thousands, and thousands, and millions of lands in the 10 directions, benefit and bring peace and happiness to living beings in large measure. These Buddhas who use countless numbers of expedient means, various causes and conditions, and words of simile and parable in order to expound the doctrines for the sake of living beings. These doctrines are all for the sake of the one Buddha vehicle, and these living beings, by listening to the doctrines of the Buddhas, are all eventually able to attain wisdom, embracing all species. Shariputra, these Buddhas simply teach and convert the Bodhisattva. They do it because they wish to show the Buddha wisdom to living beings. They do it because they wish to use the Buddha wisdom to enlighten living beings. Do it because they wish to cause living beings to enter the path of Buddha wisdom. Shariputra, I too will now do the same. I know that living beings have various desires, attachments that are deeply implanted in their minds. Taking essence of this basic nature of theirs, I will therefore use various conditions, expedient means, and expound the law for them. Shariputra, I do this so that all of them may attain the one Buddha vehicle and wisdom, embracing all species. Shariputra, when the age is impure and the times are chaotic and the defilements being beings are grave, they are greedy and jealous and put down roots that are not good. Because of this, the Buddhas, utilizing the power of expedient means, apply distinctions to the one Buddha vehicle and preach it as though it were three. Shariputra, if any of my disciples should claim to be an arhat or a prateka Buddha, and yet does not heed or understand that the Buddhas, the world Bodhisattvas, then he is no disciple of mine. He is no arhat or prateka Buddha. Again, Shariputra, if there should be monks or nuns who claim that they have reached the final nirvana, and that therefore King Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi, then you should understand that such of these are all persons of overbearing arrogance. Why do I say this? Because if they are monks who have truly attained the status of arhat, then it would be unthinkable that they should fail to believe this law. The only exception would be in a time after the Buddha had passed away, when there was no Buddha present world. Why is this? Because after the Buddha has passed away, it will be difficult to find anyone who can embrace, recite, and understand the meaning of sutras such as this. But if persons encounter another Buddha, then they will attain decisive understanding with regard to this law. Shariputra, you and the others should with a single mind believe and accept the words of the Buddha. The words of the Buddhas, the thus come ones, are not empty or false. There is no other vehicle, there is only the one Buddha vehicle. Shariputra, listen carefully for the law which the Buddhas have through the power of countless expedient means. They preach for the benefit of living beings the thoughts that are in the minds of living beings, the different types of paths they follow, their various desires and natures, the good and bad deeds they have done in previous existences. All these the Buddha is aware of, and then he employs causes, similes, and parables, words that embody the power the expedient means in order to gladden and preaches sutras, verses, stories of the previous lives of disciples, stories of the previous lives of the Buddha, of unheard of things at other times he preaches regarding causes and conditions, uses similes, parallel passage of poetry or discourses for those of dull capacities who delight in a little law, devices, adapt them to the living beings. When I preach my basic aim being to lead them to the great vehicle, and that is why I preach this sutra. Let's go to tab 9, page 171. Heart of the Prajnaparamita, the Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the deep course of Prajnaparamita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-beingness and Shariputra. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, percept, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreased. Therefore, in emptiness there is neither form nor feeling, so perceptions nor mental formations nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas grounded in Prajnaparamita find no obstacles for their minds. Having no obstacles, they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequal one, destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth. The mantra of Prajnaparamita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate, gate, pada, gate, pada, samgate, bodhi, swaha, gate, gate, pada, gate, pada, samgate, bodhi, swaha, gate, gate, pada, gate, pada, samgate, bodhi, swaha. Sentient beings are limitless. I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless. I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are infinite. I vow to learn them. Buddhahood is supreme. I vow to attain. I vow that from now until the end of my life and in all future lives, until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, that I will help all sentient beings in all realms in their suffering. Namo thus come of offerings of proper and universal knowledge, understanding and conduct, skillful in leaving the world through liberation, perfect and complete understanding of all worldly dharma, unsurpassed night teeming hero, teacher of gods and people, Buddha, the world honored. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Virabhadra Bodhisattva Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva Namo Great Pure Sea Light Bodhisattvas Namo Great Pure Sea Light Bodhisattvas Namo Great Pure Sea Light Bodhisattva Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas. Take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Laying in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light thus supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Take refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Take refuge in the Dharma, in myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Citing the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings.